Hey guys, sorry it took so long for me to upload a video. I know it's been a while. I had a lot of crazy stuff happening. There's actually a lot of reasons, a lot of things that were stopping me from being able to put up a video. One of them being the difficulty in making the type of video that I wanted to do for today. I mostly have been doing adventure playthroughs for a lot of my videos up until now, and I kind of wanted to try something new, something different. I wanted to see if I could do a guide, and so this is kind of my first attempt at a guide. We are going to be talking about something that I have called Raysin, which is a martial art of Elden Ring. Basically just a certain play style, I guess you might call it. Why is it called Raysin? Because I can call it whatever I want to. I invented it, therefore I get to name it. I named it after so that it would sound kind of like kung fu-y, just for fun. And giving it a name also kind of helps me remember them, which is helpful too. So to that extent, just kind of have fun with it. But in any case, I'm going to show you guys what Raysin is all about, and then towards the end we're going to do a montage. I'm going to go through this area. You see how like all the beacons that were kind of floating around? There used to be more of them, but I accidentally killed some of them. This whole area I turned into like this challenge obstacle course where I basically went from camp to camp to camp, trying to nerf myself as much as I could, and just see off of pure melee skill if I could clear everything through this entire area. And it was a lot of fun. A lot of Lilas died in the process of that, but that's to be expected. In any case, yeah. So anyway, that was the fruits of my labor of learning Raysin, and hopefully in the upcoming adventure playthrough videos that I do, I will use some Raysin. I actually designed it because I wanted to combine what I was doing better with Epsi, who has a tendency to rush in, and then I need a way of pulling the enemies off of him. So while I did want this kind of heavier weapon, I also wanted to have access to my blood loss scimitars. So in a nutshell, that's what Raysin is. It's the ability to combine a larger single-wield weapon with a dual-wield weapon set, and the ability to switch between them, to combo between them, and that's more or less what it is. So alright, well, let's get into it, and let's see how my guide goes, and tell me if you guys like it, like and comment, and let's do it. So before we get into Raysin, we first need to go over some of the basics. Let's start by going over the controls. These controls may be different between PlayStation and computer, or how you have your key binding set, so we'll go over them by name. The 4 attacks as they appear in the menu are Attack, Strong Attack, Guard, and Skill. However, we are going to be changing the name of a couple of these. You'll see why as we go on. The first attack is simply called Attack in the menu, but we're going to change the name of this to Quick Attack. It's the faster attack, it has a higher chance of being able to interrupt, and it does better damage over time. The second attack is called the Strong Attack in the menu, and we're going to go ahead and keep that name. It is indicative of what it does. It is the stronger attack, it does more damage, but less damage over time because of the time it takes for it to go through. The actual use of this is to break posture and to eventually stagger your enemy, and if well timed, it can do a lot of damage all at once. This is how you use it correctly. However, overusing it can be a drawback, because it is easily interrupted by faster enemy attacks and can leave you vulnerable to having your own posture broken. The third attack is called the Guard Attack in the menu, but we are going to completely change this name because that is not indicative of what it does at all. We are going to call it the Alt Attack because its function changes depending on which wield type you are going with. If you are going with dual wield, it becomes a special dual wield attack, and that is very important later on when we discuss Raysin. If you are using a shield, it becomes your block, and if you are using a single wield, where you are holding a weapon with both of your hands, then it also becomes a lesser block. Its function changes wildly depending on what you're doing, so we are going to use the name Alt Attack instead of Guard. Please keep this in mind. The final attack is called Skill in the menu, but we are going to just refer to this simply as the special attack. That's just my own matter of preference. You can call it skill if you want. I just have an easier time remembering what it does when I call it special attack, and it's more consistent with our other naming conventions, so we'll just go with that for now. Every weapon has its own unique type of skill, and these can also be changed with Ashes of War, allowing you to recombine these for a wide variety of strategies and combat maneuvers that can give you a lot of options when it comes to fighting. In Raysin, because you're using 3 unique weapons, this will give you 3 unique skills that you can recombine, switching back and forth between them, and thus giving you a lot of abilities. Now let's discuss how wield types and stances work. There are 3 basic types of wield stances: defensive stance, single wield stance, and dual wield stance. Defensive stance, as the name implies, is your most defensive option for stances. It gives you a shield, which gives you the option to block. Shields oftentimes have the ability to negate almost all damage, if not all of it, and your defensive stats will be highest if you're attacked from the front. So therefore you use this when you need to face something that's very strong and you need to stand your ground, or you're overwhelmed by many enemies and you need to take as little damage as you can. Single wield stance simply means that you are using only a single weapon, but holding it with both hands at the same time. This allows you to have a nice balance between attack and defense. You have the strongest attacks that you can, the best ability to break the posture of your foes, as well as having the ability to block, although this block is a little bit of a lesser block than it would be with a shield. You'll take more damage, but it will still give you the option to block, which will also allow you to counterattack as well. Dual wield is your most offensive and aggressive option. It gives you the ability to use your alt attack as the dual wield attack, which allows you to strike with both weapons at the same time. If you're applying status effects, it will apply 2 of them. Both of the attacks will hit with both posture, so you can sometimes break posture that way. And it just has the highest DPS with the most options for attack. However, you have no ability to block, and you will be at your most vulnerable. So you have to use other methods of defense, such as rolling and dodging and maintaining distance, and just attacking as quickly as you can to end enemies before they end you. There is a 4th stance that we need to discuss called offset stance. Offset stance is very similar to dual wield because you're essentially holding a weapon, one in each hand, but different to dual wield, the weapons are not of the same type. In order to do dual wield, they must be of the same type. They can be different weapons as long as they are the same type. For example, 2 daggers, or you could do the dagger and the misericordia. These are options. However, if you do something like a sword and an axe in one hand, that will be an offset. And the difference is that it will not allow you to use the alt attack to hit at the same time, so you will lose the majority of what it means for it to be a dual wield. There are reasons why you may want to use the offset wield stance, but for the purposes of Raysin, we are only worried about what is happening with dual wield. To switch between the different stances, you hold the event action button and then you press either right attack or left attack, in other words quick attack or alt attack. Keep in mind that my event action attack button and my use item button have been switched for my own key bindings, just so that doesn't confuse you. In order to use Raysin, we're using 2 of these wield types. We are using single wield with a single weapon, our main weapon, and we are using dual wield, so 2 weapons of the same type. The whole point of Raysin is that we are switching back rapidly between our single wield weapon and our dual wield weapons. This allows us to have the advantages of the more balanced stance of single-willed, where we have the ability to block, we usually have larger range, and we have the ability to hit with stronger attacks that can stagger and put enemies back, while being able to switch into dual-wield, which then becomes more aggressive and able to do more damage more quickly, but is more vulnerable. By switching over to single wield, we become more defensive, and by switching back to dual wield, we can finish opponents off or take down weaker opponents. These two combine very well to give us a strong fighting ability. So, probably the best way to show you guys the art of Raysin is to simply show you guys with it in practice. So I came out here to the Altus Plateau near the highway junction, and I set up a challenge for myself, marking out 5 or 6 different camps of enemies all along in this area, and then trying to defeat all of them in one go without the use of flasks. As you can see, I swapped all of my flasks over to FP flasks so that I would have to essentially do this entire area without basically taking lethal damage. I set a couple other rules for myself. For example, I wasn't allowed to backstab enemies unless they were aware of my presence. And so, because I'm running the Crimson Amber Medallion, the only way that I can actually restore health... Okay, can you just let me do my intro, please, sir? Excuse me, sir. Give me just 1 second to take care of this asshole. Whoa! Get back here. Okay. Excuse you. Where was I? So, since I don't have any other way of recovering health, the only way that I can is if I can get a backstab on the enemies using only the Assassin's Crimson Dagger, which restores health if I get a critical hit. The Raysin build that I am doing is with the Halberd, and I'm using the Charge Forth skill, as well as my scimitars. However, I took off the blood loss that I usually have on them, and I'm using Sword Dance on my main scimitar and Bloodhound Step on my lesser scimitar, and that is the build that I was using for this area. I was also using almost no armor. This is about as low of armor as you can possibly go. Basically just cloth trousers, like if you can look and see, like the weight's really low, but basically I had no damage resistance at all, and my poise was only at 1. I think it was actually at 2 because I think I was using a different set of gloves, but either way, it was really low. And anyway, that was the build that I was going to use for this little challenge, so I thought it'd be fun. So let's get in there, use some Raysin, and just show you how ridiculously obscene this art style, this martial art can be. Alright, let's do it.